Shalom. I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Ha, Rakah, Kwadash. Double honors goes out to the elders, apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me this truth. I also want to acknowledge all the Akyam for pushing this truth with sincerity. Alright. So with that, the Spirit has me today in 1 Kings 1 and 1. I'm going to go ahead and start out. And it says, Now King David was old and stricken in years, and they covered him with clothes, but he got no heat. Because King David was old at this time, like it says, and he was, sometime when people get old and they're ready to die, it's hard for them to, get body heat. So let's see what they did for King David. This is verse 2. Wherefore his servants said unto him, Let there be sought for my Lord a king, a young virgin, and let her stand before the king, and let her cherish him, and let her lie in thy bosom, that my Lord the king may get heat. Alright, so the servants who were the servants of King David thought it was proper to find a young virgin for him, right? And you're talking young virgin, you're probably talking about, I would say, 14 years old, young, virgin, a woman who has not been touched, hasn't been polluted, defiled. This is what was fit for King David, who, again, he was an old man at this time. So now, you think about that story, modern times, these Babylonians, they're going to be like, oh, that's a perverted thing, that's a nasty thing, maybe they'll throw in the old R. Kelly, argument, saying he's a pervert and this and that. But you see, what they don't understand is they're in the wrong mindset, It's not about being perverted, it's about serving the king, man. The Israelites, when you're in the kingdom, you're going to have women. And you're also going to have young women, all right? Now, I'm not saying you're going to be popping all these young women who are, 12 years old, 11 years old, whenever their flower pops, or when they're, they start their menstrual period. No, that's not what we're saying. You may take a young wife and, season her, and when the time is fit, you would enjoy that wife. I'm talking about in the kingdom, okay? Because obviously you're not going to be doing this stuff in Babylon, America, where you're basically going to, go to jail for it. So that would be a foolish, stupid thing, And really, right now, we're not in the time of having a bunch of women. We're in the time of pushing this knowledge, pushing this wisdom, sealing the elect, all right? It's not our focus. It's not on gathering up a bunch of virgins, okay? Our focus should be right now on is sealing the elect, pushing this truth, pushing this knowledge, and I'm gonna leave it at that, okay? But like I say, everybody, they read this story and they're gonna think of it because they got a Babylonian mindset, and they're gonna look at King David and say, "Oh, he's an old pervert," That shows you how wrong the mindset, according to the scriptures, when compared to the mindset of these Babylonians, these Americans, all right? Verse 3, So they sought for a fair damsel throughout all the coasts of Israel, and found Abishag, a Shunammite, and brought her to the king. And the damsel was very fair, and cherished the king, and ministered to him, but the king knew her not. Alright, and when it says the king knew her not, it means he didn't sleep with her. Alright, he didn't fuck her. Alright? So keep reading. Then Adonijah, the son of Haggith, exalted himself, saying, I will be the king. And he prepared him chariots and horsemen and 50 men to run before him. And his father had not displeased him at any time in saying, Why hast thou done so? And he also was a very goodly man, and his mother bare him after Absalom. And he conferred with Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and with Abiathar the priest, and they, following Adonijah, helped him. But Zadok the priest and Benaniah the son of Jehoiada, and Nathan the prophet, and Shimei and Rai, and mighty men which belonged to David, were not with Adonijah. Salakia, still getting over this cold. And Adonijah slew sheep and oxen and fat cattle by the stone of Zoheleth, which is by En-Rogel, and called all his brethren, the king's sons, and all the men of Judah and the king's servants. So basically what's happening is Adonijah is trying to be the heir apparent, the successor as king of Israel, right? He's assuming the position, right? But let's see what happens. Verse 10, But Nathan the prophet and Benaniah and the mighty men and Solomon his brother he called not. So when Adonijah was setting himself up as king, he was calling all these men of Israel, but there was some important men that he avoided, right? And one being Nathan the prophet, and another, King Solomon, who would eventually be King Solomon, his brother. Because he knew in his spirit, that Solomon was going to be the king, the next king, the heir apparent. This shows you that, hey, even your own family, your brothers and stuff, and I'm not talking about your brothers in the truth, I'm talking about, brothers in the flesh, that, hey, this is something that can happen. So think about that for Jacob's trouble, and think about that for, when the government's trying to pay your family off, so that they can, find you, to try and put a microchip in. The family's gonna throw you under the bus, Just like Adonijah, he didn't give a shit about King Solomon was the right pick for the next king of Israel. No, he was trying to take that thing as his own. All right. So let's keep reading. Wherefore Nathan spake unto Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, saying, Hast thou not heard that Adonijah the son of Haggith doth reign, and David our Lord knoweth it not? So for the prophet Nathan, he knew, because he was a prophet, right? So he knew. He hollered at Bathsheba, like, hey, you see what's going on? Adonijah's trying to set himself up as king, And King David don't even know about it, He's old at this time, And by the way, does it say anything about Bathsheba getting all pissed off because they brought a young virgin to lay with the king? See, so you women, I know it's a tough pill to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow. But this is biblical. And this is how things are going to be in the kingdom. It's not don't get mad at the men of the Lord. Don't get mad at the prophets. All we're doing is teaching the way it's written. All right? So we're bringing out this truth according to the way it's written, not according to whatever makes you happy. All right. That's the difference between a true man of the Lord and a false prophet. All right. So let's keep reading, because this is another subject. But anyway, verse 12. Now therefore, come, let me, I pray thee, give thee counsel, that thou mayest save thine own life, and thy life of thy son Solomon. Go and get thee in unto King David, and say unto him, Didst not thou, my lord, O king, swear unto thine handmaid, saying, Assuredly, Solomon thy son shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne. Why then doth Adonijah reign? So Nathan the prophet, he knew what was up. Because again, why? Because he's a prophet. He knew that Solomon was, because in his spirit, he knew that's who was going to be the heir apparent, the successor. See? Let's keep reading. Behold, while thou yet talkest there with the king, I will also come in after thee and confirm thy words. So he's like, just go in there and holler at King David, tell him what's going on. I'm going to come in and I'm going to be that witness, you know. I'm going to back you up. Verse 15, and Bathsheba went in unto the king into the chamber, and the king was very old, and Abishag the Shumanite ministered unto the king. All right, and remember, who was Abishag? She was the young damsel, the young virgin. Again, you didn't read nothing about Bathsheba flipping out because Abishag was in there ministering to the king, right? And ministering means just taking care of all his needs, you know. Verse 16, and Bathsheba bowed and did obeisance unto the king, and the king said, What wouldest thou? What wouldest thou? See, so Bathsheba was, she humbled herself. She goes in to talk to the king, David, and she bowed herself, you know. And remember, when you're submissive to your husband, like Bathsheba's showing in this chapter, hey, you make yourself beautiful, the Bible says. You actually adorn yourself when you submit to your husband, all right? Let's get that real quick, just because through the spirit, you know. Let's get that verse. It's in the Apocrypha. Well, there's one in Timothy, but that's not the one I'm looking for. But you know what? I'll just get that for the sake to move on, because I'm reading it. It looks, it's good. It's good for what I'm trying to look for. So it's 1 Timothy 2. 1 Timothy 2, what does it say, 9? In like manner also that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly array, but which becometh women professing godliness with good works. All right. So you know, when you submit, you're submissive to your husbands, and when you're in modest apparel, you make in the eyes of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, you become adorned, which means you're made more beautiful. All right, it's more beautiful for a modest woman to be walking around in modest clothing than to see a whore walking around in tight ass clothes, you know, showing everybody her snatch, you know, titties, all that, hanging out and stuff. You know, that's a wicked thing. You shouldn't be doing that, you know, if you have a husband. See, again, this is according to the scriptures, all right, not according to, we're not just making up stuff on our own, all right. Go back to this. Well, anyway, Bathsheba was being modest in this chapter. And she even bowed to the king, all right? Which she made herself, that word obeisance, you know? I'm sure it has something to do with obedience. But let's keep reading. Verse 17. And she said unto him, My Lord, thou swearest by Yahweh thy power unto thine handmaid, saying, Assuredly, Solomon thy son shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne. And now behold, Adonijah reigneth, And now, my lord, the king, thou knowest it not. So she went and took the advice of the prophet Nathan. All right. And that's another example. Not only was she being obedient to the king, David, her husband, but she also had the faith and the spirit to listen and follow the directions and the understanding of the prophet Nathan. Told her he said, hey, go get in there, man. Don't lose what is yours, and don't lose what is your son Solomon's. See? Verse 19. And he hath slain oxen and fat. And she's talking about Adonijah. He basically prepared a ceremony, a feast, to anoint himself as the king. So let's keep reading. And he hath slain oxen and fat cattle and sheep in abundance, and hath called all the sons of the king, and Abiathar the priest, and Joab the captain of the host, which is the army. But Solomon thy servant hath he not called. See, so she's like, hey, he has everybody lined up, getting ready for this ceremony to anoint himself as the king. But he didn't call the prophet Nathan. He didn't call Solomon the rightful heir apparent. See? Verse 20. And thou, my lord, O king, the eyes of all Israel are upon thee, that thou shouldest tell them who shall sit on the throne of my lord the king after him. Otherwise it shall come to pass, when my lord the king shall sleep with his fathers, meaning when he dies, that I and my son Solomon shall be counted offenders. So she knew that it's going to be a problem if you don't make Solomon king and let these people know, and we're going to be offensive to them, Verse 22. And lo, while she yet talked with the king, Nathan the prophet also came in, just like he said he would, right? He came in and backed her up. And they told the king, saying, behold, Nathan the prophet. And when he was come in before the king, he bowed himself before the king with his face to the ground. So even the prophet Nathan walked in and he bowed down to the king. All right, showing humbleness, gesture, and also obedience. Respect. Verse 24. And Nathan said, my lord, O king, hast thou said Adonijah shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne? For he is gone down this day, and hath slain oxen and fat cattle and sheep in abundance, and hath called all the king's sons, the captains of the host, and Abiathar the priest. And behold, they eat and drink before him, and say, God save King Adonijah. See, so he went and basically confirmed what she was saying, saying, hey, Adonijah's trying to have this great feast to anoint himself as king, But me, even me, thy servant, and Zadok the priest, and Benaniah, and son of Joiada, and the servant Solomon hath he not called. See, so now the prophet Nathan, he's like, he didn't even call me out, Adonijah. Because why? Adonijah knew in his spirit the truth. He's not going to call the people who are, who in his spirit, that he knows that he was wrong for what he was doing. So he's not going to call Solomon to the feast. He's not going to call the prophet Nathan. You see? So these 2/3, man, they could be in your family, and they're going to do wickedness. Out of their own greed and their own desires and their lustful needs and whatnot. So that's what it is. That's why, like I said earlier, Jacob's trouble coming around the corner, and you got to use wisdom, because even your own family is going to be doing you dirty. You see? 26. I'm 27. Is this thing done by my lord the king, and thou hast not showed it unto thy servant, who should sit on the throne of my lord the king after him? All right. So, I'm reading this. It's talking about Solomon. It's talking about Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan. they're both pleading to King David, saying, hey, the wrong king is about to be anointed if you don't come and get this right, you see? So let's read it. Verse 28, Then King David answered and said, Call me Bathsheba. And she came into the king's presence and stood before the king. And the king sware and said, As the Lord liveth, that hath redeemed my soul out of all distress, even as I swear unto thee by the Lord, the power of Israel, saying, Assuredly Solomon thy son shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne in my stead. Even so will I certainly do this day. Then Bathsheba bowed with her face to the earth and did reverence to the king. Reverence means respect. And said, Let my lord King David live forever. So you see? So she was all about it, of course, right? She knew in her spirit who that her son Solomon would be the next king, right? And not only that, let's get this First Chronicles 22 and start at 6. It says, Then he called for Solomon his son and charged him to build an house for Yahweh Shem Yahshai, the power of Israel. And David said to Solomon, My son, as for me, it was in my mind to build an house unto the name of Yahweh Shem Yahshai, my power. But the word of Yahweh Shem Yahshai came to me, saying, Thou hast shed blood abundantly, and hast made great wars. Thou shalt not build an house unto my name, because thou hast shed much blood upon the earth in my sight. Behold, a son shall be born to thee, who shall be a man of rest, and I will give him rest from all his enemies round about. For his name shall be Solomon, and I will give peace and quietness unto Israel in his days. He shall build an house for my name, and he shall be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. All right. So Yahweh Shem Yahshai is the one who told King David in Chronicles chapter 22 that, hey, this is going to be the king. All right. And it went against the tradition, because typically it would be the firstborn, right? That would be the king. But in this case, there was a change. There was a difference, because Yahweh Shem Yahshai ordained King Solomon to be the king, not Adonijah, his brother was Adonijah was older than him. All right. He had actually other brothers that were older too. One being Absalom, but he was already killed. But he had a couple other brothers who were older. But in this case, the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahshai came to King David and said, "Hey, this guy is going to be the king, King Solomon, your son, Solomon." All right, because when you go to Deuteronomy 21 towards the end, let's read it. It tells you the way the birthright's supposed to go, But like I say, in this case, it was an exception that the firstborn wasn't going to receive the birthright. Part of the birthright would be the king being the heir apparent, right? So let's start at 15. Deuteronomy 21:15. If a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn son be hers that was hated, then it shall be, when he maketh his sons to inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn, by giving him a double portion of all that he hath, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. All right. So the scriptures refers to the a man's firstborn son is referred to as the beginning of his strength, and then because he's the beginning of his strength, he's going to be receiving the birthright, the double portion, right? Because he's the firstborn. But see, again, when we went to First Chronicles chapter 22, Yahweh Bashem Yashai told David, no, this guy Solomon is gonna be the heir apparent, receive that birthright as king, even though he had brothers who were older than him. So when Yahweh Bashem Yashai, ordains something and requests or tells you something, you don't go against it. You rather go against the tradition than against the power of Israel, Yahweh Bashem Yashai, right? So that's why King Solomon, he was ordained to be the king, all right? And if you think about it, it's the same thing with Jacob and Esau, because remember, Jacob was younger than Esau by couple minutes, couple seconds, because Esau was the firstborn, but yet he didn't receive the birthright. Why was that? Same reason, because it was not ordained for Esau to receive the birthright. It was ordained for Jacob to receive the birthright. In the same fashion, King Solomon received the birthright and the king, and becoming the king of Israel after King David. And it was because it was ordained by Yahweh Bashem Yahshai, all right? So, I wanted to close out now just because I brought all the main points out. But, with that, I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Bashem HaRekakodash. Double honors goes out to the other apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me this truth. I also want to acknowledge Allah Akyam, who are pushing this truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom to the elect. Keep on enduring, brothers. And, keep on pushing. And Abad Babal, all right? To this place. Curse this place, man. So, shalom to the elect.